I think I could do it here. We're live. Tanya Class Part 2, continued.
Why does the Alter Rebbe use the term soul? So first of all, it's to show us that there are two opposite personalities. As we started in chapter 8, he speaks about the person who davens with intensity. He's a spiritual person. He could be a chassid. But then he goes out on the street after davening, and his eyes are wandering, and he becomes attracted to something that may be not so holy. So he asks himself, what's going on with me? Am I the pious shul Jew? So why am I attracted in the street to street stuff? And if I'm a street guy, how come I love to daven? So then it may enter his mind, you know you're a phony, so just give it up. And it could be even a secular person who's trying to do what's right. He visits the hospital, he visits people, he's idealistic. But you know, Tuesday he's selfish, and he hangs up on people who are nudging to him, and he loses his temper in the office. So his wife may say to him, listen, don't stop being a phony. You're being nice to people, you're not really nice to people, you're selfish. Now it could be he is a phony as a political animal, there are such people. But what happens if he's not a phony? He just has two sides to him. So the Alter Rebbe says in chapter 28, you have to compartmentalize your different parts of your behavior. And both are true. Sunday and Monday and Tuesday, you're idealistic. You're charitable. You visit hospitals. But Wednesday, the selfish side of you, the animal soul, took possession of you. So it's not that you're false. It's that you're complex. It's not that you're zigzagging your behavior and you're a nut job. It's that you have the animal side in you, and you also have the idealistical and godly side of you. That's why you need to describe it as two souls, not two inclinations. Reason number 2, an inclination is an impulse, it's a feeling. It's connected with feelings. What about the intellect? Is my intellect a soul? Is my intellect part of my debate? If you just go by the Gemara, by the Talmud, so there's my inclination to be selfish, my inclination to be idealistic, and then my mind is going to make a decision. That's if it's just inclinations. The good and the evil are inclinations, but the mind is impartial. And to this, Rabbi Chaim Vital says, no. You have two souls. The soul is a complete person. A soul has the intellect, has the emotion, has energy. It's a whole personality. And therefore, the animal soul has its own intellectual leanings. Not only does it have emotional impulses, but it has intellectual argumentation for why to be selfish, and justifies itself for its behavior. Because it's a whole soul with an intellect and a reasoning of its own to justify what it wants and what it's inclined to do, and its whole being. On the other hand, the godly soul and the idealistic soul also has its own intellect. It's a total personality from head to toe. From intellect, emotions, energy, like a whole personality. And this is important, so a person shouldn't think that, well, I'm making a calculation with my mind, so that must be impartial. No, it's possible that his intellectual calculations are also partial. And he has to ask himself, is this argument that I'm making within myself, is that coming from my animal soul? It's a logic coming from the animal soul? Or is this logic and justification, reasoning coming from my godly soul? It's not enough just to think that one's mind and intelligence is totally impartial. It's not impartial. He has two beings, two personalities. And point number 3, why it's so important, the idea that it's a soul, that it's a nefesh, and not a yetzer. Point number 3 goes even deeper than that. When I'm looking at you, do I see a body or do I see a person? Depends what I'm looking at. When I speak to you and I want to get a message to you, am I speaking to your, why am I looking you in the eyes? Because I feel in your eyes there's your essence, there's your soul. So I look you in the eyes. The soul is the life force. It's your real being. It's your real essence. It's your real identity is your soul, not your body. Your body is an instrument of the soul. There's a story with the Alter Rebbe, actually, which illustrates this in a very beautiful way. He had a grandson, Rabbi Menachem Mendel. Not the Rebbe of our generation, but he was the 3rd Rebbe. Our Rebbe was the 7th Rebbe. So this Menachem Mendel, he was an orphan at a young age. So he used to sit, the Alter Rebbe, his grandfather, said, I wanted to sit in my study and play in my study. So he would sit in the study of the Alter Rebbe. And from time to time, the Alter Rebbe would play with him. So the Alter Rebbe was finished learning something, and he says, Mendel, come sit on my lap. And he says, Mendel, wo is Zayda? Where's Grandpa? In Yiddish he said, where's Grandpa? So the little boy pointed to the chest of the Alter Rebbe. So the Alter Rebbe says to him, Mendel, that's my heart. But where's Zayda? Where's Grandpa? So he points to his face. He says, that's my nose. Where's Zayda? He holds his hand. He says, that's my hand, but where is Zayda? Where's Grandpa? The boy was bright from an early age, and he saw he's not going to convince his grandfather anything. So he gets off the lap, gets off his grandfather's lap, and he sits down and continues playing. After a while, the Alter Rebbe gets up, and he goes to the door to leave the room. He needed to get something outside of the room. And when little Mendel sees his grandfather heading for the door, he says, Zayda, Zayda! And then his grandfather turned around. So he says, that's where Zayda is. Who answered the call. So what are we? We look in the mirror, do we see ourselves? We see our nose, we see our forehead, we see our body, but do we see ourselves? Ourselves is the soul, the life-giving force. The mind, that's our soul. The soul is deeper than the mind. That's who we talk to. You look someone in the eyes and you tell them something, that's the soul. When Reb Chaim Vital says that it's souls, and in Tanya they bring the idea of a soul, they say something very important to us. That our body is just a tool and an instrument of our real being. And what is your real being? It depends what you do. When you do right, your body is a tool and an instrument to the godly soul and to godliness. And when you do wrong, your body is a tool and an instrument of your animal soul, and you're doing selfishness. and you're a being of selfishness. And that's the question in the choices we have. Are we being possessed by goodness, or are we being possessed by selfishness? Because they speak about a demon possessing some person, right? It's possessed by a demon. What does it mean, possessed by a demon? I mean, the demon takes over of it. Right? There's such idea. But I want to use the word possessed. What is the meaning of possessed? It takes over. By what are we being taken over? Are you being taken over by a godly soul? So you're a godly being? That means your body is an instrument of godly soul and of God to bring good to the world? And think about what greatness is in that I am allowing myself to be an instrument for goodness of the world through being allowing myself to be possessed by the godly soul and the godliness that connects me to. Or the selfishness is just not a plain little selfishness. The selfishness it means that I'm connected and I'm being possessed by my animal soul, which animal soul comes from the source of everything that is selfish.
What's the guy's name that taught you cell phone so we can share it?
Yes.
One of the classes, did we say it was a devil?
Huh?
A devil?
So you don't believe, a person has no devil. I mean, the cartoons, they make a devil. A demon. A demon and a devil, we're talking, a demon and devil are evil. And in the cartoons, they may show you a little devil that you're possessed by a devil. Yeah, but we're not talking about a demon. Animal soul, an animal is not evil necessarily per se, but it's selfish.
The animal is more interested in survival.
Okay, so now we're going to get to animals. So now that I brought out the 3 points about what is the advantage of defining ourselves as having two souls, defining our two sides, our dichotomy, as a complexity of two souls, over just saying, well, it's one person with inclination for this, inclination for that. This is something fundamental. Now, he's going to start speaking about the animal soul. And then, next week, we're going to continue with the godly soul. So what is the animal soul? So I'm going to continue reading a line or two inside. Nefesh achas mitzad haklipa v'sitra achim. One soul is from the side of the other, is from the other side, is from the shell. V'yam mislabeshes b'dam ha'odam. It is what is in the blood. The energy just in the blood, flowing the blood, bringing the warmth in the blood. That is the animal soul. The scientists say we're almost as much animal as anything. That our physicality, our body is the DNA of an animal mostly. And according to Hasidus and Kabbalah, this is true to a great degree. That's true, the animal soul, because the animal soul gives the vitality in our blood system, in the circulation, giving life, physical life. From the animal soul, all of our negative qualities come from that. And now he's going to explain lust, ego, laziness, etc., all comes from the animal soul. Now, he uses a word over here that's pure Kabbalah. He says that the animal soul comes from the shell or the peel. It's a Kabbalistic term to describe everything. We have a choice. In life, your choice is, do you want the fruit or you want the peel? Do you want the shell, the outer shell, or you want the inner flesh and nourishment of the fruit? If you judge a fruit solely by its peel or its shell, it may look very good, but it may be a poisonous berry. It could be red. If you look at a fruit by its shell, you're not looking at what its purpose is. Its purpose is the shell protects the fruit. The shell is just the outer appearance of the fruit. There's a purpose in the shell. There's a purpose in the peel. But really, what's important is not the outer trappings, but the fruit. That's what you eat. That's what's important. Some shells, a coconut shell, is not even edible. Some fruit have a shell that's not even edible at all. Some shells have edible. We're going to get to the different types of shells. And therefore, in life, are you looking at the outer trappings of things? Or are you looking at the inner core? How do you look at another person? Oh, very good looking. Okay. What about character? The world that we're living in is very superficial. So actors and actresses have decisions about what the world should look like. That's because people are looking at the outer trappings. They're looking at shells. They're not looking inside. So there used to be an advertisement for a cereal. I think it was Wheaties. And they had this muscular sports hero who hit a lot of home runs, and he says, Wheaties is healthy. Arguably, they should have had some professor in college who would explain to you why Wheaties is healthy. But that would be a nerd or a geek telling you he's going to sell cereal. The average person looks at the outer trappings, at the shell. So when you look at another person or look at yourself, or you look at your animal soul does the outer shell. Your animal soul and your body is an outer shell of what you really are. Yeah, but it's a deep shell, it's a thick shell. So everything that is outer is outside the parent's shell. That's the animal soul. The godly soul is the inner part. It is conscious, it's an inner conscience. Or maybe even sometimes a subconscious. The subconscious is deeper than the conscious. But we're talking now about the animal soul. It also comes from the side which the Kabbalah calls the Sitra Achara, the other side. And when the Kabbalah gets into that point of discussing, there's the side of holiness and the other side. So to say, the darker side. And we have choices. Do you want to be part of the side of holiness and goodness, or you want to be on the other side, referring to what's unholy? So the animal soul, the impulses that come from body, that's flowing in our blood, hot blood, is animal. Now, as you said before, it's instinctive. It's not necessarily bad, but it is certainly not godly. And he's going to develop the two sides of the animal soul. So, for example, the animal soul, as we said before, from it comes all of the negative qualities that we have. The negative qualities like, as we said before, ego. And the way he explains it in Tanya, the Kabbalah, actually, this is in the Kabbalah, in the works of Rabbi Chaim Vital, just like in the world there are elements, and the ancients spoke about 4 elements. Figuratively, the Kabbalah applies that in human personality. So there's water and fire and air and earth. So, of course, in soul there is no earth. And fire may be heat, warmth. and there's no physical water. But these 4 elements are used to describe different types of qualities that are within us. And this is very interesting. Umimenu boas kol hamidus rois me'abe yisoidus roim sheba dainu kas v'gavim yisoid eish nigmel alayla. Take v'tayvas hatanugim yisoid hamayim ki hamayim atzmichim kol minei tayim. The 2 first examples that it uses is fire and water. What is the fire in the animal soul? Anger. You ever see a person who lost his temper? Red in the face. He's burning. I'm burning angry. You ever that term in English? I'm burning angry. I'm burning. Because he gets all hot about things that he shouldn't be. You shouldn't lose your temper ever. Ego also is from that. And he explains, fire is always pointing upwards. The nature of fire is upwards. You try to light fire, lay a fire, you can't lay a fire. Water you can run, the earth stays down. Fire is always going up. Person of ego is always looking, you see me, I'm here. I'm here. I'm a somebody, I'm a something. I'm not average. I'm not another Joe Schmo. Look, I'm here. Getting up. He's to try just to be tall, big, make a lot of noise. He's going up because I'm supposed to be hiding everybody. So that's the ego. Where does ego come from? Ego is also in the soul. It's in the animal soul. Because it's part of the selfishness of the animal. But a plain animal, I don't know if a cow has an ego trip. No. But that's because the animal soul in the human also has seichel. It's the intellect of the animal soul. So he's making calculations. I want to be bigger than everybody. Because to him it's not enough pain. A regular plain cow just worries about pain and pleasure. But an intellectual, a human being who has intellect, his thrill is ego. Or he's angry. Ego and anger go together. And this, right? Psychologically. Ego and anger. If someone has no ego, he never gets angry. Right? Why did he lose his temper? You didn't listen to me. You ignored me. I didn't get my will. I want this, and that's not happening. So I'm getting angry. If someone would be totally humble, he would never get angry. Think about it. Kas and gaiva go together. Anger and ego go together. It comes from the same place in the soul. It comes from the same place in the animal soul. Animal soul has ego, the human animal soul, the human soul. Sometimes in some of the Hasidic literature, the human soul is contrasted with the godly soul. But the human soul is also not godly, it's just human. It's a step above the animal, but it's not godly. The human soul has an ego. The human soul is similar to the animal soul, it just has a brain on top of that animal. So therefore there's the ego, and there's anger from the same place, from what they call the element of fire. And then there's the water. Water, the Kabbalists looked at the water. Water makes things grow. Water gives pleasure. Pleasure comes from water. The way that he mentions in Tanya is because delicacies come from water. Water makes things grow. Everything that grows we eat. And it gives us pleasure. Water also, people have pleasure in a bath. In the Gemara we find that there was Rabbi Zushe Winner, who originally was a great scholar. And then he lost it all because he used to bathe himself all the time. He used to take great pleasure in baths and in swimming and in water, and he became so materialistic and body focused that he forgot his learning. So pleasure, so pleasure, if someone is into pleasure and lust, that comes from what they call the element of water. Lust of it, he wants to have pleasure and lust. He's following his lusts, he's following his pleasures. He needs to have pleasure. If he doesn't have pleasure, he can't exist. And there's such people. Maybe everyone to a certain degree. So once someone said the world is divided into two types of people. Some people who like chocolate, some people who don't like chocolate. So you have people, the whole world is this chocolate-inclined people and not chocolate-inclined people. Chocolate is it's a pleasure thing. In fact, they say there's a chemistry in chocolate that makes you happy when you eat chocolate. So that's pleasure. And someone who is so into pleasure that he's losing control is lustful. That's connected with water. So here we're analyzing the psychology of this animal soul or even human soul, and we got to these two qualities. And he's going to continue. There's air. The element of air is also in our soul, and from there comes hot air personalities. You ever heard a guy that's full of hot air? What does it mean he's full of hot air? He's boasting. And the Hasidim used to explain, the Rebbe, Alter Rebbe says over here, ego comes from, is connected with fire. Gaiva, his ego, is connected with fire. Boasting is connected with air. But isn't boasting ego? The Hasidim would ask, isn't ego with boast? Someone's boasting all the time means he has an ego. So how come the Alter Rebbe puts ego with fire and boasting with air? And they say there's two types of people who are boasting. There's someone who's very bright, or very rich, or very good looking. He has qualities, and he thinks those qualities make him a better person. That's fire. He has what to boast about. He says, look, I got the highest mark. Look, I'm a billionaire. I'm a genius. Yeah, so he says, look, I look at my bank account. Look at the average American bank account. So he's boasting. Best looking person. Look, I'm the best looking. Everyone says, yeah, he's good. So he has what to boast about. That's fire. Even if you have qualities, you shouldn't just be like fire that rises up. But if you're full of hot air, you have people who boast and they have nothing to boast about. They're just empty vessels, hot air. And he's talking. What do you have to say? Are you smart? No, you're not saying smart things. But you have these people who are speaking up and screaming and saying things. Are you intelligent? You're not intelligent. No, I'm going to fight for this stuff. Why are you fighting for this? Why are you fighting for that? Give me a reasonable argument. Are you rich? You're not so rich. What are you screaming? Are you smart? What do you have? So we say you're full of hot air. That's air. You know, but sometimes we're full of hot air if we waste time. Wasting time is hot air. Not just silliness. It's hot air. Here in America, this is a whole industry. You know, entertainment. You know, sometimes if you're depressed, it's good to have hot air also. It's another discussion. If there's any good to any of these classes, if there's any good to ego, is there any good to having pleasure and desire for pleasure? Is there any good? We're still going to get to that. There may be some good in it. But right now we're talking about the animal who is inclined for hot air, silliness, joking all the time. Are you a real person or are you just a joker? Yes, these people are joking all the time. I'm joking. Let's laugh. Well, what are you? Is there anything serious about you? People who are jokers, a lot of times they have low self-esteem. There's nothing to them. Right? Some people that walk on a swagger. Say, hey, cool guy. Why are you cool? Someone asked me in the street in the summer, Rabbi, aren't you hot? I'm wearing this thing and a hat jacket. I said, I'm not hot, I'm cool. So I got away with it, I'm cool. So what are you cool? I tell my students in Shiva, cool doesn't mean you're walking with a swagger. Cool means you're living a real life. Get a life. But silliness, joking around, boasting, that's air. And then finally it's going to get to earth. Earth is stuck. Water moves, air flows, fire rises. And earth, you put a blob of earth on it, it stays right where it is. So if your personality is such that you wake up in the morning and you're in bed, you're not getting out of bed, you're stuck in bed, you're depressed. And I don't mean necessarily psychologically depressed that you need pills, but you're just down, or you're sad, or you're lazy. Laziness and sadness go together. It's earth. So now you can apply this to all the faults that we have. That doesn't come from the godly soul. That comes from the animal soul. So now does the animal soul possess us completely? Look at our faults. We have to remember, these faults, it's not coming from a good place. It's from the shell. Your ego, it's the shell. You don't have to, you have other things going for you. You don't have to boast. You have good qualities. Kindness, not the outer ego shell type of personality. So you're into pleasure. You're getting drunk with pleasure. What are you living for? What's your life about? You're chasing here, you're chasing there. You're cheating on here, you're cheating there because you want to have pleasure. What your core, your family, things that are really important, your essence, the fruit, not the shell. But he's into the shell. He's into lust. He's into ego. He's into entertainment. They say the Romans made the Colosseum so that the citizens of Rome should be entertained with what's going on at the Colosseum, so they don't only think what's going on in the country, what's going on in the city, what's going on, how is our own life being improved by our leaders. So they didn't want them to think how our life is being improved by our leaders, so let's entertain them. Go to the Colosseum. Don't think about anything else. That's all the shell. These are components of the shell. Silliness, mockery, and boasting, and nonsense talk. Misay Ruach comes from the air, the element of the air. That comes from earth. Then there's the other side. The other side of the animal soul is the good side. Here he says something. There also, in the animal soul of Jews, good qualities. What? Compassion, generosity. The Gemara even includes shyness or sensitivity is a Jewish quality. In fact, the Gemara says, when you're looking for a shidduch, look for these qualities. Compassion, generosity, and shyness or sensitivity. Shyness is a complicated translation. Why? Because these are good qualities. And they also come from the animal soul. The different type of animals. There's the animal soul of wild animals, cruel animals. You have animals that they eat up another animal while they bite off pieces while they're still alive. They have these videos today. How these pack of lions can attack a wild bull and start tearing off pieces of him. He's still alive and they're chewing him up. It's a wild animal, cruel. They're so far away from any sensitivity. They're so far from they enjoy making pain. The animal soul is not necessarily, some people could be a cruel animal soul, you have such people. But the average animal soul, it has qualities of selfishness, of ego, of the pursuit of pleasure, and so on. And then the animal soul of a Jew that we have in the Jewish DNA, also in the animal soul, also in our physicality, is that we inherited from our ancestors the tendency for compassion and generosity. And that's why charity is a very Jewish quality, characteristic. And there are studies about who gives charity by religion, by country. And the Jews, by religion, the Jews are on top of the list. After that come, I think, the Protestants and the Catholics in the bottom of the list here in the United States. Because even if a Jew who's not religious and claims to not believe in God, he also has in his genes, in his Jewish DNA, he has compassion and generosity and sensitivity. That's why Jews are very idealistic. Every idealistic thing, rightly or wrongly, the Jews are all in these extremes of new ideas, of progressiveness, and in the Soviet Union, the revolution, equality for all. Jews were involved in the revolution because they would dream of the utopia. Because they had these idealistic ideas, maybe misguided. But this also comes from the animal soul. The animal soul has good in it. The animal soul of a good has good. Of a Jew certainly has good in it. And as you can explain, because in shell and peel, there's different types of peel. There's a shell that you have to, coconut shell, you can't eat it. You have to pick out the coconut, the meat of the coconut, and you eat it. The shell you have to throw away, or do whatever you want. It's not edible. There's some peels that are edible. Some people like the peel of an apple. Maybe has better vitamins than the flesh of the apple. But the shell, it depends what kind of shell. And the Kabbalah speaks about, when we're talking about klipa, the peel, not all peels are created equal. Some peels are there to be discarded, and some peels are to be used and to be included. And the Kabbalah says there are gimel klippis hatmeis. There are 3 types of shells that are to be excluded and discarded. And everything that is sinful and everything that is evil comes from the outer shell and from the outer peel to be discarded. It has no good in it. And therefore, when we're confronted with something that is evil, we should know this is coming from the side of the shell. It's from the other side, totally discarded. But then you have, well, this is a peel. It's not the apple, it's the peel. It's not the grape. The inside of the grape is what you make the wine from. It's the peel of the grape, but it's called the klipas noiga. It's the peel that's clear. It's clear. It's not heavy. Noiga means it's bright, it shines. But in the context over here is it shines and clear because it's edible. It's to be included. And this we have to look at. There's different types of shells, different types of peels. Some to be excluded, some to be included. Can be Yisrael nefesh the klipa hima klipas noiga sheyesh b'gam kein toiv hima eitz adas toirah. There's things that the tree of good and knowledge of good and evil. So there is in life stuff that has in it good and evil. The animal soul of the Jew has in it evil and has in it good. The Gentile world out there, the Kabbalah says, they're from the outer shell. There's no good in them. The Kabbalah looks at the average Gentile having no good at all. And we have in the Talmud expressions of that. The good that they do is for themselves. They should be considered kind. It's just to brag. An illustration to me is when you're watching the United Nations, these countries speaking human rights. This is terrible what's going on. So you have China and you have Iran, and you say, look what the Israelis are doing. It's totally against basic human rights. And in their jails, they're torturing people. So, human rights is wonderful. Is anyone against human rights? Of course not.
Well, if you're a dictator.
Yeah, what? But he talks the talk. The phoniness of the United Nations illustrates that. Now, it must be added that in one of some Kabbalists, and also commentators on the Tanya, when it comes to this line in the Tanya, they say that when the Kabbalah speaks about that the Goyim, the Gentiles, are from the shells that are not from the impure shell, to be not and have no good in it, it's talking a generalization. But there are Gentiles that have good. They don't have a godly soul, which is a special, unique Jewish mission that Hashem chose us and called us His children and gave us a godly soul, which we're going to be speaking about in chapter 2. But the Gentile, like the Jew, have the shell or the peel that to be included, that can be connected with holiness. And in fact, you find this also in Talmud, in Gemara. Chasidei umas ha'olam yesh lam chelek lo'olam haba. The righteous amongst the Gentiles do have a share in the world to come. And we say in Oleinu, we speak about the nations of the world recognizing Hashem in the future. Our prophets speak about in the future the nations of the world will come to the temple of Yerushalayim to worship Hashem, the God who created heaven and earth, the God of all of mankind. So it's clear that there are in the nations of the world a connection to good. But there's a lot of evil out there. You know, if you look at the numbers of the vote on Jerusalem, look at the numbers. The majority of the world was against. And a handful of countries were for, and then there's the abstain, which is another level. But that's the point of the Tanya. The point of the Tanya over here is that we have to understand what have an animal soul. The animal soul is animalistic. It's not necessarily totally good. It's not totally evil, but it has some good to it also. But then there's a whole different story, the godly soul. That's when we talk about God's image and so on. This is something totally different. But this also gives us understanding of our own psychology. You have to understand there's two souls. You have to understand we're very complex. We have two personalities. And each personality, and we analyze each personality, different qualities that we have. And that's what a chassid does. That's what Tanya teaches us. Analyze yourself. What you're going to say now, is it coming from your godly soul or is it animal soul? Is it a compliment, making someone feel good? Or is it a compliment that is just a false compliment? You want to get in someone's good side because you want to use them. So this is what Tanya is about. You have the animal soul and you have the godly soul. What is possessing you at this moment? The thought that you're thinking, this word that you're going to say. And this is going to be analyzed deeper and deeper to have a very deep psychological understanding of our own self and of our great potential. Thank you all for coming. Have a good night.
Thank you.